stealing, woo, wheeling, dealing, limousine right, jet flying, son of a gun.
From the past.
I am a real American.
To the present. And the future.
I sentence you to deletion!
You are listening to Penn State's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus, Ryan Simpson, and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final edition of Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus, and alongside me for the final time, Ryan Simpson. Ryan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Final ride here today, almost like the curtain call back in MSG here at Innovation Park today.
It really does feel like that. It's a very bittersweet feeling. Wish Matt could be with us. Matt had some personal issues that he had to take care of, but I know he was really looking forward to doing this with us. So I'm sad that he won't be here with us, but he is with us in spirit, as they say. So, but we got a lot to talk about, Ryan, because there's a lot of professional wrestling still going on. Although Marking Out is wrapping up for the semester and potentially longer, professional wrestling never stops.
Never.
Which is the great thing about it.
Amen.
So we actually have a lot to talk about. Of course, the TLC pay-per-view is this Sunday. We will get into our full predictions later in the show. But the first thing I want to talk about is the independent wrestling scene, and specifically Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's a lot of crossover between the two. But certainly some of the bigger stars have started to separate themselves from the pack. We talked on the podcast last week about the potential of a new wrestling promotion, All Elite Wrestling, potentially run by Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks. And since we have talked about that in the podcast last week, the rumors have only continued to grow from here. Cody Rhodes was spotted in the press box at the Jacksonville Jaguars game. Of course, Jaguars owner Shad Khan's son, Tony Khan, is the alleged funding for this new promotion. So what has your reaction been to this whole revelation of potentially a new wrestling promotion?
I'm very, very excited for it. As we discussed it last time, I think the initial move by Vince McMahon to really, really lock down his talent, and then the response by TNA to do very, very similar things with their talent and say, you know what, we don't want you guys going out and wrestling for independent promotions anymore, really shows that they are putting out the perception that they can really do this thing. Obviously, they put in the work for All In Chicago, went off without a hitch, to our knowledge. It looked like a fantastic event. All the reception about it has been fantastic. And then all these patents come out and all of this news breaks. And then Cody Rhodes is at the Jags game in the press box. So I'm very, very excited for it. I think Cody wants to really step out of his dad's shadow doing this, even though he's still kind of staying in his dad's shadow, wanting to be the promoter and the booker. But I'm very, very excited. I mean, this is something that hasn't happened in very, very, very long time. So all the best to the Young Bucks, all the best to Cody. I think if they can get this off the ground, they are going to be a huge, huge force to be reckoned with in the professional wrestling game.
I agree with you. And I think one of the things that makes this situation really unique is that, and you kind of alluded to it, we haven't had real competition to the WWE since 2001 when WCW ended. You could argue that for a little bit of stretch of time there, TNA was kind of competing with them, but in my opinion, as soon as TNA really started competing was the beginning of their downfall. They moved to Monday nights to compete with Raw, and then they were never heard from again. Now, there were a lot of other factors that went into that.
Oh, definitely.
Most notably Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, and
brother.
But I think Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks have a really special opportunity here. The biggest concern that I have for this potential new All Elite Wrestling is just who are they going to get to fill out their roster? Because there is so much talent now, like you said, locked up into the WWE and Impact, and even New Japan has a lot of superstars and non-compete clauses. So it'll be interesting to see if this does take off, just who exactly they get to bring into their company. I don't know what they could do here. One of the big names that they assume will probably be the leader of their company. And we'll get to before we get to the big name in the company. There have been already a couple names already attached to the product. One of them is Jim Ross, the legendary WWE announcer who has done work for Bellator, New Japan Pro Wrestling, pretty much all over the globe. And he has come out and said that he will be a willing participant in this company should it get off the ground like it's going to be. What was your reaction to a potential Jim Ross headlining the announce team for this new promotion?
This is really tough because I think this is very similar to the Chris Jericho situation. Jim Ross has been so loyal to Vince McMahon throughout the years. Jim Ross, for those who don't know, started in WCW and then caught Vince's eye and was brought over to join WWE and become the legendary voice and figure that he is. But it's very similar to Chris Jericho. I don't know if Vince would let him do it. Because at the end of the day, we do still see Jim Ross at big events. We saw him at WrestleMania. We saw him on pre-show panels and stuff like that.
He did the first Saudi Arabia show.
He did the first Saudi Arabia show. So obviously he's still close to Vince. I think he would be on one of those Legends contracts where Vince can say, hey, we'll come back and pay you for this event if you were free and available. But I don't know if Vince would let him go and do this. Just because even if Vince doesn't see it as direct competition to WWE, Jim Ross, who for all intents and purposes is Vince McMahon's property, is going to work for somebody else. And that usually does not sit well with Vince McMahon.
No, and I'm not going to sit here and speculate on the logistics of Jim Ross's contract, whether or not he has one with the WWE, whether he's free to work with whoever he wants. But certainly by adding a name like Jim Ross, who amongst mainstream audiences, like you don't have to be a hardcore wrestling fan to know who JR is, know that he is associated with professional wrestling in its peak. So it definitely brings a sense of credibility to this organization if they are able to bring him on board. Someone else I want to talk about potentially being involved in this All Elite Wrestling program is good friend of Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, and current IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kenny Omega. Now, Omega's set to defend his title against Hiroshi Tanahashi at WrestleKingdom 13, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But from Kenny Omega's perspective, he's making a lot of money in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is the face of that company. Do you think it is possible that Kenny Omega jumps ship to be with his friends and be the guy over there, knowing quite possibly that financially it may not be the best move for him?
I think if I was Kenny Omega, I would wait until it got off the ground. I would make sure it was pretty set in stone of how it was going to work and stuff like that, because if Kenny were to want to jump, I think having like a quote-unquote surprise appearance or something like that after the first champion's crown or something like that, that is how you get eyes on the product.
Right.
You don't have him sign and everybody know he's going to show up there because everybody knows his relationship, as you alluded to. But if you have Kenny stay in New Japan and do his thing and kind of help out with All Elite Wrestling behind the scenes, and then once they start getting their feet wet in the promotions and their booking and stuff like that, and then you have Kenny Omega show up, social media and the wrestling world is going to blow up.
I agree.
Because we all know it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
If this gets going, he will end up there, but it's going to be a matter of when. And when it does, that's when people are going to tune in. That's when people are going to start talking about it, and that's when All Elite Wrestling really becomes a threat.
Yeah, and now all this talk, of course, is stemming off of the patents that were essentially applied for terms like, All Into, Double or Nothing, All Elite Wrestling, AEW, all these terms that are essentially alluding to this new promotion. But nothing has been officially confirmed yet. However, there were reports that came out this week that kind of really more solidify the fact that Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and all these guys involved are not going anywhere. And what I mean by that is there was a report that came out this week that Cody Rhodes, as of just a couple weeks ago, officially declined an offer from the WWE to come back. So the WWE is interested in bringing back Cody Rhodes for obvious reasons. Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
But Cody Rhodes is not coming back. Now, this is something that you and I have talked about since he left for the WWE.
Many times.
I know. And I've always said I think one day Cody is going to come back because they always come back.
Very true.
But Cody really does seem like he's set to go out and make a legacy for himself. And as you kind of said earlier, try to do his best to step out of Dusty Rhodes' shadow. obviously easier said than done.
Yeah.
But what is your reaction to the WWE trying to sign Cody Rhodes?
I think, as you said, I mean, it makes sense why they would want him back. But as we were just talking before we went live on the air, there's a funny problem in WWE right now where they have so much talent, but there's so few stars.
Yeah.
That's one of the main problems that myself, you, and Matt always talk about every week is Raw gets so watered down by seeing the same faces every single week. And it seems like just a run-of-the-mill show, and we're not excited to see anybody on TV anymore compared to when we were growing up where you had guys like The Undertaker and Cena, Eddie Guerrero, Batista, Triple H, Shawn Michaels always on TV, but there was a different aura around them. Like, you could feel that they were the next step above. So if Cody were to come back, especially with Roman going through what he's going through, Braun going through what he's going through, and this kind of weird turmoil part of wrestling in WWE right before the road to WrestleMania. I mean, we are a month away from the Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
and we
crazy.
We are very, very confused on what's going to happen going forward. But it makes sense for them to try to bring Cody back because he's going to be a star as soon as he walks in that building. Everybody is going to respect him the way that he should be respected, and he would help the company move in a certain direction because he obviously has ideas from outside of the wrestling ring, the promotional, the booking, the behind-the-scenes stuff that we don't get to see. So it makes sense. But it totally makes sense why he declined it.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes sense. Them filing for this, him turning down the offer, him showing up at the Jags game, this is him saying, you know what, I appreciate what you guys did for me. I found who I want to be, and I know I can't be myself here. So I'm going to go do it on my own time and make the best of it.
Now, let's play devil's advocate for a second here. Let's say Cody Rhodes, for whatever reason, decides to sign back with the WWE. Maybe he realizes that All Elite Wrestling's not going to take off. He's going to make more money than WWE, more mainstream, yada, yada, yada. If he signed back with the WWE, do you think that this Triple H and Vince McMahon, who are the same people who were there in charge when he left,
True.
would have enough wherewithal to make him a top guy, or do you see him falling back toward into the mid-card like a lot of these other, like a Shinsuke Nakamura, like a Bobby Roode, like, you know, there's countless other guys that brought in to be top guys and then just floundered.
I think the way you do it, and this is the way that the majority of good returns or good debuts happen, is you have somebody very prominent in the ring. And the first guy that comes to my mind would be Seth Rollins. You have Seth in the ring talking about Dean Ambrose, talking about what he's going to do. And then you have Cody come out. Because, a lot of the wrestling fandom would love to see Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins.
Oh, 100%.
Depending on what belt Seth has, that also solidifies what kind of person they see Cody as.
Right.
If it's the IC belt, they see him as an IC guy for now. Maybe he wins the belt from Seth, carries that for a couple months, and then goes on to be a main star. But I would have a very, very hard time thinking or seeing Vince McMahon and Triple H letting him slip back to that level.
You think so?
Yeah, just based on them re-offering him a contract and seeing how much he's done on his own time away from WWE, I think they now realize they screwed up the first time. This is a, hey, our bad, please come back and help us make money. But once again, too, with Shinsuke, with Bobby Roode, with these guys from NXT, I mean, you could even say Finn Balor to a certain point.
I think Finn Balor's absolutely in that conversation.
I think he's in that category, too. These guys who are supposed to be big stars, they come up, they get their little run, and then they flounder again. Maybe that happens to Cody, too. But Cody, once again, being smart about the situation, he doesn't want that to happen again, so he's just staying away.
And certainly there is precedent for this ability to come back and be pushed to the moon. I look at a guy like Drew McIntyre who did the exact same thing. You know, he came into the company at first. He was, you know, the chosen one, was going to get a decent push, kind of fell toward the mid-card, then toward the lower card with 3&B until he was out of the company, came back, became NXT champion, moved to the main roster. Now he's in a position to probably be, in their eyes, one, if not the top guy, probably 1B as the top guy. I think the difference between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes is that Drew McIntyre's always had the look that Vince McMahon likes, whereas Cody Rhodes is a smaller, more athletic, but he's a smaller guy. He's not the prototypical, he's a Triple H guy.
He's a Triple H guy for sure.
But he's not a Vince guy. So it would be interesting to see how they would do it. I don't have the full confidence that they'd book him correctly just because I don't have the full confidence that they could book anybody correctly.
I was just about to say that.
So I definitely think, And one last thing before we move on here. There's been more speculation about the solidification of All Elite Wrestling. Of course, this is all coming off the heels of All In Chicago in September, which was a purely independent wrestling show. No one who appeared on that show was under contract with the WWE or any other major promotion. And they sold out the Sears Center in Chicago with 10,000 seats. A massive, massive accomplishment for independent wrestling as a whole. And since then, Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks have gone on record saying they'd like to do an All-In 2. And most recently, they said that they would think about making All-In international. Cody did an interview last week where he said that if they were going to do an All-In 2, there's potentially talks about them doing it in somewhere like the UK or Australia. What are your opinions on a potential All-In 2 outside of the United States? Do you think it would be as successful as the one this past year?
It definitely depends on where they have it. If they have it in the UK, if they have it somewhere where there have been wrestling events before, definitely would be successful just because there's an audience for it. But to go back to the old adage, location, 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 definitely would fit here as well. I mean, I think anybody who follows wrestling enough, or even the casual fan that used to watch it when they were younger and they grew out of it, or they have a family now that is interested in it somewhat, it would be a great thing to go and see. It's definitely a spectacle. I mean, for people who knock professional wrestling, obviously, us being huge fans, people always bring up, oh, it's fake and this, that, and the other. But when you sit down and you show somebody who's a supposed hater a video of, like, something that Ricochet does, like,
right,
extremely athletic,
yeah,
or Seth Rollins and, like, all the CrossFit stuff that he does, they slowly start to come around and see that these people are athletes.
Yeah.
Like, this is not easy to do. So if you have an event overseas where there's a casual audience and definitely a diehard audience that can spread the word and promote it for you, I think it would be extremely successful. Also, going into play of where it is, what kind of local promotions or local talent you can bum off of those promotions to assist your show. Like, say it was in the UK, and there's some people who haven't been picked up by WWE yet, that All In could scoop in for the show and promote them and push them. But I think it would be extremely successful still. Yeah,
so do I, and I think I'm very excited to see what the Young Bucks and Cody and the Elite and all of them, what they're doing in the coming months. All of them are under contract up until the beginning of 2019, so not that much longer, but 2019 looks to be one of the best years for wrestling that we have potentially seen in a long, long time. So with that, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more of the rumors regarding WrestleMania this year and potentially the Royal Rumble, as well as preview both the TLC card for this weekend as well as WrestleKingdom 13 in January. You are listening to the final edition of Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and for the final time, welcome to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me, Ryan Simpson, and we're talking professional wrestling, and more specifically, we're talking about some news on the independent circuit on professional wrestling. And there was a big medical emergency that happened this past week at a House of Hardcore event. House of Hardcore, a wrestling promotion run by ECW icon Tommy Dreamer. And at this promotion, formerly known Big Cass, going as Big Kaz, and Big C on the independent scene because of those legal issues, was supposed to appear at a House of Hardcore promotion, but before he could go into his match, he actually collapsed backstage. Came out later that he suffered a seizure, and this is the first that we're hearing of Big Cass since he was released by the WWE earlier this year. Ryan, what was your reaction to the Big Cass news?
It was definitely scary. I mean, these wrestlers that have these medical issues or there's suspected medical issues, it's always scary to see their name trending on social media because you never know what happened to them. And that's just stemming back from many, many years of watching wrestling and tribute shows that show up on Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah.
But apparently Tommy Dreamer has talked to Big Cass recently and said he's doing well. The event apparently continued on after that. Big Cass collapsed in the lobby or somewhere.
Yeah.
And fans kind of gave him the space and let the medical personnel come in and attend to him. Good on the fans there, not being typical wrestling fans and like showing him respect as a human being to get the medical attention. But it's always scary to see something like that happen to somebody.
Yeah, and since Big Cass had been released by the WWE, there was a lot of speculation about, well, where does he go from here? And, of course, his most successful tenure in the WWE, or NXT for that matter, was when he was paired with Eric Arndt, formerly known as Enzo Amore. Now, Enzo Amore is also making headlines himself, but for all the wrong reasons. He tried to, he effectively did interrupt Survivor Series last month, got thrown out of the Staples Center and banned for life. He dropped a rap album under the alias of capital NZO. And I brought this up because Enzo and Cass kind of had a public falling out shortly after Enzo's release from the WWE. But Enzo reached out to Cass over Twitter just to make sure that, he was okay. You believe the tweet was, if I had a dime for every time one of us fell down and he didn't get back up, I'd have zero dimes. Of course, a play off this one of his many slogans. But obviously, right now, the most important thing for Big Cass is his medical issues. But if he gets cleared and he still has a desire to work in the industry of professional wrestling, does it make sense in your mind for Cass and Enzo to get back together, or should they just both leave each other alone?
Based on where both of them are past or post WWE, it definitely makes sense for them. Whether they are going to is a completely different story. I remember when Enzo was first released, he said that he would never go back to professional wrestling, and he didn't need that garbage anymore, and yada, 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 trash, trash, trash.
And then he showed up at Survivor Series.
And then he shows up at Survivor Series wearing a disguise, stands up on a chair on the hard cam side of the event, and starts giving his shtick.
Mm-hmm.
Soon to be thrown out by a woman security guard, which was fantastic to watch.
Yep.
But based on where they both are in their careers, I think it makes sense for them to get back together.
Yeah, I think from a marketing standpoint, it makes sense because, like I said, they're most successful either of their careers when they're together. But I just feel like unlike many people in the industry, I hate Enzo Amore. I think he's annoying. I think he's obnoxious and, quite frankly, untalented. He's great on the mic, but he can't wrestle, and I'm sorry, you can't be a wrestler if you can't wrestle.
Not wrong.
So I don't know. It's tough. Financially, yes. Do I want to see it? Not really. I don't really have a desire to see them back together. I don't think they'll get anywhere. But nonetheless, I do wish the best for Big Cass. Enzo, good luck with your rap career, but you should never wrestle again. Something things happened this week as well. Obviously, Big Cass had a medical emergency, but was able to, seems like he'll be doing okay. Unfortunately, this past week, we had 2 deaths in the professional wrestling industry from Dynamite Kid and Larry the Axe Henning. Dynamite Kid, real name Tommy Billington, died at the age of 60. Cause of death still unknown, but Ryan, what has been your reaction to the death of these 2 absolute legends in the professional wrestling industry?
It's definitely sad. I mean, as we alluded to with Big Cass and having somebody's name trend on social media for a very scary reason, it's definitely saddening. You and I are both a little bit too young to have really watched either of them, but we've always heard the talk about how great the British Bulldogs were, Davey Boy Smith and then Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid was also one of those wrestlers who inspired a lot of smaller guys to get into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Davey Boy, his tag team partner, the British Bulldog, was a much bigger character. He had the physique. He had the look, as people say. But Dynamite Kid definitely had the skill. He definitely was a better pure wrestler than Davey Boy Smith was. But they had a very successful career in WWE together. Dynamite Kid had some other medical issues in his life. He ended up losing his left leg, and he was forced to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. For almost 20 years, he had to stay in a wheelchair. But Dynamite Kid, definitely a legend in the professional wrestling industry. Will Ospreay showed his condolences. Davey Boy Smith Jr. also showed his condolences over Twitter. But moving on to Larry the Axe, died at the age of 82. For those who don't know as well, Larry the Axe Henning's son was Kurt Henning, Mr. Perfect.
Yep.
And then his grandson is one Curtis Axel, who is still signed by WWE.
Yep.
So the Hennings are one of those families that maybe don't get as much press as, say, other wrestling dynasties.
Right. You think of wrestling families, and I think the first one you probably think of is the Harts. Maybe certainly the McMahons are up there.
Yeah.
The Ortons.
And then you think of the Samoan dynasty.
Samoan dynasty. And I think think the Hennings are probably one of the most underrated wrestling families because they
Von Erichs are up there, obviously.
Von Erichs, yeah.
Thinking
But
of them too.
I mean, if you just look at from Larry, the Axe Henning, his impact on the industry as a whole. Of course, his son, Mr. Perfect, one of the most iconic characters in the history of wrestling, specifically for the time era that he was in. I think he was ahead of his time.
So ahead of his time.
Unfortunately for Curtis Axel, he hasn't had
as much
he's made
success.
a lot of money, but
I mean, they haven't cut him yet. I think as much as we all want to downplay Curtis Axel's WWE career,
yeah,
he is still with the WWE.
Curtis Axel is a former Intercontinental Champion and has a television win over one Mr. Triple H.
This is very true. And let's not forget, he is still in one of those Royal Rumbles from way back when. He's still in the Rumble.
2015 Royal Rumble.
He's still in that Royal Rumble. But very, very sad news to hear about Larry the Axe. I'm always saddened by events like this, but I'm always excited to see how WWE pays tribute to him.
Right.
That is one of the few things that WWE has gotten right over the years, is when somebody in the industry passes away that had a huge impact on other talent or the industry in general, they will pay their respects. I expect the entire roster to be out on the stage tonight on Raw, 10-bell salute, video packages for the both of them, because that's what they deserve. And if they get anything less than that, shame on Vince McMahon, shame on the WWE. These were two human beings who cared so much about professional wrestling, influenced so much down the road that they will never see. I mean, there are wrestlers who have been inspired by these two that these two have never met or never will meet or may never ever see wrestle. But they had an impact on the industry. They should be given the proper respect that they have deserved.
I absolutely agree. And last week on Raw, they did a tribute to George H.W. Bush, the 41st president of the United States, who passed away recently as well. So you'd got to figure that they should at least have some sort of mention or in memoriam to both Dynamite Kid and Larry the Axe. But nonetheless, condolences out to their family. May they rest in peace. True icons of the business. On some happier news, Ryan, there has been one person we haven't seen for a long time is Bray Wyatt. And he did make an appear at the Starrcade live show the other week. That match wasn't even broadcasted all over the WWE network. Didn't make the cut, but he did make his first in-ring appearance in months. He defeated Baron Corbin in an open challenge by a roll-up, nonetheless. But the news that he made this past week is that he deleted all his past tweets except for one, and it read, "Today I am someone different. Today I have finally become who I really am." Many people think this is going to lead to a new character change, perhaps, but either way, looking like we're going to be seeing Bray Wyatt on our screens sooner rather than later. What's your reaction to the cryptic Bray Wyatt?
I mean, Bray Wyatt has always been one of those characters who has captivated the WWE audience based on what he has said or what he has done in the ring, because he is a very, very athletic guy for how big he is.
Yeah, speaking of wrestling families, I mean, IRS, Bo Dallas, I think even
Blackjack Mulligan.
Yeah.
That's definitely another family. But my one worry, as I Google something here during the show, is I hope that they don't turn Bray Wyatt into Kevin Thorne.
You think they're gonna make him a vampire?
No, I think they're gonna have him turn into some mystical light being, because he's been this grayish, demonic kind of speaking character. For those of you who don't know who I'm comparing Bray Wyatt to, there was a wrestler named Kevin Thorne back in the day who had two aliases: Mordecai, who wore all white and dyed his hair white and had a white beard.
One of the worst gimmicks WWE's, and there's been a lot.
There's been some bad ones,
but one of the worst ever.
But he had this character of Mordecai that was very light and godly, and then he turned into Kevin Thorne, who was a vampire. So, please, WWE Creative, do not turn Bray Wyatt from this ill-speaking, creepy and eerie character into some kind of worshiper of light and make him shave his beard and all that. Like, I still want some of that old Bray Wyatt, just a little bit flipped, because we can't strip away everything from Bray Wyatt, because if we strip everything away, people are going to chant Husky Harris at him again.
Oh, I agree. I think more that what concerns me about Bray Wyatt is not so much his character, because I think I actually have enough faith in the man to be able to adapt his character and get his character over. What I really worry about with Bray Wyatt is the booking. What is they have to have a plan for him. He's been going off television for so long. He cannot come back on television, have one program, and then start to lose again. If he's coming back, he's got to be pushed to the moon, in my opinion. And I hope that creative has something planned for him. It looks that they do, but certainly a worry in my eyes, because if this goes wrong again, I don't know how you come back from this.
Yeah, and that if they don't book him right, then honestly, I think he's one of those guys who's on the bubble for the yearly releases.
I agree.
Which is a shame, because this is former WWE champion Bray Wyatt.
And you know what's even more unfortunate about that is, yeah, he's a former WWE champion, but arguably one of the worst title reigns in modern WWE history. Won it at the Elimination Chamber before WrestleMania 33 and dropped it a month later.
To Randy Orton, of all people.
To the 15-year-old veteran who didn't need any push.
Yeah, this is very, very true. But I hope that when we
one of the worst WrestleMania matches of all time we had.
You're not wrong. But I think going back to how they're going to book it, if Bray Wyatt's out here on Twitter, have him show up at the Rumble.
Yeah?
Because there is nothing like a Bray Wyatt entrance on a big stage. Even if he has new music, as soon as people see that it's Bray Wyatt on the stage, everybody's phone's going to be out. And I think that's the one thing that creative always overlooks about Bray Wyatt. That is one of the coolest things that can happen at a WWE event, because it shows fan interaction.
Right.
That is one of those things that very few people have in their entrance anymore. Mm-hmm. The first one that jumps to my mind is Finn Balor.
Right, because everyone just does the...
Because everybody throws their arms up.
Yeah.
But once again, that shows that the fans are behind the talent.
Right.
Name somebody else on the main roster that when they come out and they have an entrance, you can interact with them as an entrance.
I mean...
Roman, you can't. Seth, you can't. Dean, you can't. Bobby, you can spin around in your circle. Whip-de-doo.
Do you consider the burn it down for Seth?
Yelling is one thing, but like you can always yell during a wrestling show.
Right.
If you can do something particular for each wrestler that's specialized for that wrestler, I think it means so much more. So when WrestleMania season rolls around and everybody whips their phones out and puts their flashlights on and waves them back and forth to Bray Wyatt, I think that's something that should show production and show creative that, hey, like, the fans really like this guy. Like, please do something with him. But hopefully when he comes back, it's a good push. Hopefully he doesn't fall to what Shinsuke or even Bobby Lashley at this point came back real hot and then just fell off the face of the earth. Hopefully it's not something like that.
Remember months ago when we were like, I can't wait for Bobby Lashley to come back and fight Brock Lesnar?
Yep, and here we are
now,
December 10th, and he's just like chilling with Leo Rush.
Yeah, it's bad. But before we get off Bray Wyatt, one quick question. When he comes back, does he have Harper and Rowan with him?
Initially, no.
No. Okay.
I think they should gauge how the crowd's going to react to him.
Okay.
If the crowd still reacts to him positively, I think then you add Harper and Rowan to him. If they react poorly, then you save Rowan and Harper and say, okay, they're over, they're done with Bray Wyatt.
If the ship's going to tank, no reason to put more people on board.
No reason to put more sailors on board. But I think eventually it would still be good.
Yeah, I mean, for Harper and Rowan had a nice tag team title run. Rowan got hurt and has been inactive ever since.
Poor Rowan.
I think Harper's still healthy though.
I believe so, too. And Harper's so underrated in the ring.
He's so underrated.
He's so good. When he won that IC belt a couple years ago, I was like, man, like they're really going to showcase him. And then they did nothing with him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't deserve that at all. Harper's so good. And, I mean, once again, when Rowan and Harper have the tag team belts, they're good. Yeah. They have really, really good chemistry in the ring. They're two huge, brutish figures. And just spitballing here, too, I would love to see them against Authors of Pain. Because those are just some bruisers in the ring.
Talk about physical.
Those are going to be some hard-hitting matches.
Yeah.
And I think based on how Raw's tag team division's going, you need somebody to come spice it up against AOP.
Oh, yeah. I mean, did you see that? I mean, we talked about it, so I know you saw it. But that Survivor Series team,
oh my!
Every single one of them was a jobber. Like, there was no one there that we were supposed to take credible. The leader of that, and I know I've been ranting about this for 2 weeks now, but the leader of that team was Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, who just lost because they got their jacket peed on. So
sorry, Matt.
Yeah, sorry, Matt, but that tells you everything you need to know about this Raw tag team division outside the Authors of Pain right now.
Yeah, that would be really good. I mean, even even if AOP were to somehow just like be in a triple threat match at Mania and you have a surprise team kind of thing, like we had the Hardys show up at 33. But I think Bray Wyatt coming back, have him singled by himself. Maybe you can have him be one of these stars that the show really needs. If he starts getting a positive reaction, bring in the reinforcements. Bring in Harper and Rowan. If not, maybe it's the end of Bray Wyatt in WWE.
Yeah, certainly not the hope. We hope Bray Wyatt is able to come back because he is so captivating. But you had mentioned, Ryan, that you think Bray Wyatt has a shot to return at this year's Royal Rumble event.
Yes.
There has been a lot of speculation, as you mentioned, about Royal Rumble, about the road to WrestleMania, and a little bit of a spoiler here. So if you are adverse to spoilers, fast forward a couple minutes here. Because right now we are talking about the latest rumor that has come out about this 2019 Royal Rumble, and according to CagesideSeats.com, apparently the plan right now is for the Royal Rumble to be won by none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I assume before Roman Reigns announced his fight with leukemia, the plan was probably to have Rock Roman at WrestleMania 35 in New York this coming April, but obviously with Roman on the shelf, that is no longer the case. So, Ryan, I will go to you. If indeed they pull the trigger on The Rock winning the Royal Rumble, first let me get your opinion on The Rock winning the Royal Rumble. And two, if he wins it, who does he face?
Man, I mean, as much as my friends hate The Rock, I love to see The Rock in WWE.
Me too. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. But.
Yeah, he's always going to be a guy that I will love seeing on my TV set. When he went off the script on Raw a couple years ago and walked up to those fans who were cosplaying, social media blew up because everybody knew that if this wasn't The Rock, he would have been in some hot water.
Exactly.
But it was The Rock, so Vince had to play nice and say, "Oh, thanks, Dwayne, for coming back." But The Rock winning the Royal Rumble, not a fan.
No, why not?
Not a fan because the Royal Rumble should be used to push somebody who's right at that brink, to push them to the next step so they can have their big match at WrestleMania. Win or lose, they get on the big showcase. The Rock does not need that anymore. The Rock is going to draw eyes no matter what match he's in. So maybe you set up something in the Royal Rumble match itself, but you don't need The Rock to win the Royal Rumble. Barring that he were to win the Royal Rumble, there is only one match I would want to see, and it would be Rock and Lesnar.
Okay.
Because there's the history.
Yeah.
And The Rock is enormous compared to how he was at SummerSlam 2003.
Oh, yeah. It's essentially two different guys.
It's night and day.
Yeah.
So I would love to see modern-day Rock go up against Lesnar, grizzled veterans of both of their respective careers at this point. Rock being out of the game. I mean, he had that 3-second match with Rowan at WrestleMania.
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, that did happen. But I would love to see The Rock and Lesnar. It could go 3 minutes. It could go half an hour. I'm going to mark out the entire time because it is going to be The Rock versus Brock Lesnar.
Who goes over?
Who goes over? Ooh, I think it would be Rock.
Really?
I think it would be Rock because I think this would be one last see you later, Brock, from Vince, because I think Rock would want to do it the right way.
I tend to think Lesnar would still go over in that situation, but I mean, I don't know. That could just be a recent history bias. We always think this is the moment Brock's going to lose, but if you need someone to care, I mean, I hate Brock as champion because he's never there and he doesn't care, but the guy's monstrous, and he's credible that he could physically beat anybody in the world up. So, but one thing that really is throwing this off is that there's also rumors that Brock Lesnar could potentially be facing Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. So, if that is the case, if you have Brock-Seth, what does The Rock do? Or if it is Brock-Rock, what does Seth do? There's a lot of unanswered questions there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
If it ends up being Brock and Seth, I would love to see Seth just go over.
Oh, I think if it's Brock-Seth, you have to put Seth over.
You have to put Seth over. We have done this too many times, as you just said. We have done this too many times where we sit and speculate about what's going to happen and when Brock's going to lose.
Rollins has never won a Royal Rumble. This would be a perfect time to shoot him to the moon.
Absolutely. You have him still have the IC belt even.
Yeah.
Have it be a champ versus champ match.
I think that'd be phenomenal.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Because, once again, too, this whole Dean thing is not going the way we really wanted it to.
No.
So I think if you throw a champion versus champion match, people are going to get excited because champion versus champion matches don't happen that often.
No.
And I think that would be like the crowning moment of Seth Rollins is the guy.
Yeah.
Sitting here looking at another dirt sheet, Matt Hardy recently did an interview where he said he's not retired. So Matt Hardy still on the books.
He's going to be the new GM.
He might
Once
be.
Baron Corbin leaves for whatever reason they decide.
All about that. Yes. But I think Matt Hardy's opinion, which he said in the interview, was completely correct. Matt Hardy said that Seth Rollins should be the nucleus of the WWE.
100%.
He should be the guy.
The guy is everything. He's good on the mic. He's the most over babyface on the roster, in which there are no baby faces.
He sells that merch.
He sells that merch. He's the best in-ring performer outside of maybe AJ Styles in the entire company. There's no reason not to push him other than the fact that he's not 6'6" and 300 pounds. And that's the only reason. And if that's what's holding him back, then the WWE are morons.
They're out of touch.
Yeah, I'd say so, especially with the Raw these past couple weeks. I think that's fair to say.
But I mean, if Seth were to win the Rumble, no complaints at all.
No.
I would like to see somebody else win it.
Mm.
Like, I don't think I would be as excited if Seth won it, but I would be like, you know what? Good.
Mm.
Like, they're putting all their eggs in Seth Rollins' basket and saying, you're the guy. We're taking you to the moon. We believe in you. Let's do this thing together. If it's anybody else, and I hate to reference him again because I feel so bad for the guy, but when Shinsuke won that Rumble, I was so excited for him.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be it. He's going to go to the moon. He's winning the strap at Mania off AJ. Going to be a huge crowning moment. And here we are, almost a full year later, and he is the U.S. champion doing diddly squats.
Yeah, I still think that was the right call to have him win that Royal Rumble instead of that match against AJ. I just think everything after that point was the complete wrong decision. Shinsuke, again, one of those guys who, like you had mentioned, is on the bubble at this point where I think once his contract's up, he's going to leave because he knows he can make money in New Japan and be the guy. And he's not getting that in the WWE. And I don't think he ever will, to be honest with you.
I don't think he will either.
You know, I can't see a scenario. I think you want to say it's a language barrier thing, but I think if anything, it's just a barrier between him and management. I don't think management gets him. And I think that's the biggest issue because you're not going to be able to convince Vince otherwise if he doesn't get you.
Here's a question for you, and then we'll jump back to Brock quickly and Seth and all that. But do you think if Shinsuke was given the offer to go back to NXT and still make the money that he's making on the main roster, do you think he would stay in NXT?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So you're asking me if money's not a variable, would he rather be on the main roster NXT? Yeah, I think he'd rather be on NXT.
Then go back to New Japan.
Oh, you're saying New Japan? Would he rather be in NXT or New Japan if money wasn't an issue?
Yes.
That's tough, but I'd say New Japan. I'm assuming he's family there.
Yeah.
That's everybody. There's no barrier, language, cultural, like that. Those are his people.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be a top star there. He's gonna get paid like a top star there. For as many enticing opportunities as there are in NXT to have dream matches between Shinsuke Nakamura and Aleister Black. Shinsuke, can you imagine the strikes in that match?
Gosh, just give me a Kinshasa and a black mass.
Yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Johnny Gargano versus a Velveteen Dream. Like, there's so many dream matches there, but I think if you want to think long term, I think New Japan makes more sense for him to go because he will be treated like royalty there. Whereas in NXT, he'll just be more realistically. If he were to go to NXT, I think he does have all these dream matches, and I think he still looks really good in them. But I have a hard time believing he goes over in any of them.
He's also not getting any younger. Shinsuke's 38 years old, so I think he should go back home to Japan. But what is your opinion on the Lesnar-Rollins situation if that were to happen?
So if it's Lesnar-Rollins for the Universal title at WrestleMania, I'm really excited about that. I think Seth needs to go over there without question. And if they're still looking for The Rock to have a match at WrestleMania, and it's not going to be against Seth, and it's not going to be against Brock, I only think there's one man there that I would like to see The Rock wrestle, and it's AJ Styles.
Ooh.
I think AJ Styles has been shown well over this past year that the company believes in him. He is, despite the lack of pay-per-views he's main evented, because he's always on the second to last behind the Universal Championship, I still think he's probably, in their eyes, their biggest star. So I think if you're and it's a dream match between him and Rock, just a combination of styles. Although you don't necessarily think that those two would work well together, but they're two of the best professional wrestlers to ever do it. There's no way that they can have a bad match.
Absolutely not.
Whether that's for a championship, I don't know. I think even if it was just an exhibition one-on-one, I'm still okay with that.
Absolutely.
But I think that's one of the most realistic matchups, and I think one I would love to see. Is there anyone else you'd like to see The Rock face if it's not Brock or Seth?
Oh.
And assuming Roman still is, fighting cancer?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I would, once again, going back to just throwing somebody in there to kind of give them their due. I mean, I go back to, like, John Cena and Kurt Angle when John Cena made his
Cena
debut.
needs a match at WrestleMania.
Can you imagine if we got Cena Rock 3
at the same place that it was happened 4 years ago?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
But I think the only other person I would really like to see is some surprise guy from NXT.
Ooh.
Can you imagine if Velveteen rolled out wearing Rock's gear at WrestleMania?
That'd be insane.
He comes out with a Just Bring It shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. He walks out with a mic and starts saying about the millions of Velveteen Dream fans. That would be something I would want to see. Because it would come sort of full circle because The Rock endorsed Velveteen as being the entire package, being the total package, being a bona fide star in the making. So seeing somebody like that step up, I would be all for that. I would be running around my house, as I have many, many times. But I think other than a Brock Rock or even Seth Rock, Velveteen would be the only other person that would be genuinely excited to see The Rock face at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and that goes back to just their inability to really create stars. Because even, outside of Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, and AJ Styles, I don't know who number 4 is. I guess Braun.
I would put Braun there, yeah.
I mean, Rock Dean Ambrose doesn't do anything for me.
No.
I
mean, Brock versus Dean Ambrose did
that was
nothing. That was terrible for everybody.
Yeah, it didn't help anybody. So, I don't know. But either way, we're looking like we could have either a great WrestleMania or one of the worst. Right now, unfortunately, it's looking like it's going in a negative direction. But the WWE always has time to shape it up, especially going towards the Royal Rumble. So that's going to lead us into our next break. When we come back, we're going to preview WrestleKingdom 13, as well as the final card for TLC this Sunday, and as well as a special treat for you guys to end the podcast. So you are listening to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Marking Out on Com Radio. We're Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me, Ryan Simpson. And for the final time, we are here marking out with you guys. And we are talking about WrestleKingdom 13 in January of 2019. It is officially, it is a New Japan Pro Wrestling's a WrestleMania, if you will. It's the biggest show of the year. There are a lot of great matches already confirmed. But before we get to WrestleKingdom 13, there was another independent wrestling match that was announced for York Hall in York, England on February 19th. So it is after WrestleKingdom. But it is between two of the greatest high flyers, definitely of this era, potentially of all time. It is Will Ospreay versus formerly known as Neville, now known as Pac, in York Hall for Rev Pro Wrestling. Ryan, what is your reaction to the dream match that will take place between Ospreay and Pac?
I'm very, very excited for this. This is one of those matches where you mark your calendar immediately as you see it. And sitting here with the article from WrestlingInc.com, Rev Pro sold out York Hall in the quickest time ever.
Yeah.
As soon as this match was announced and they released the tickets, it sold out the fastest that the venue had ever sold out before. I'm very, very intrigued by this match. As you said, these are two of some of the greatest high flyers today, possibly ever. There's definitely going to be some crazy spots in this.
Yeah.
Just because these two, once again, are just pure athletes. I mean, the stuff that Neville was able to do in WWE with the limitations that he had in WWE, still incredible.
Yeah.
Will Ospreay doing his stuff on the independents, in New Japan, Tournament of the Super Juniors, is ridiculous. So when these two match up on February 15th, the entire pro wrestling world will be watching because this is one of those dream matches where you would say hey, I saw this match. Like, I remember this match.
Yeah, and I think once Neville left the WWE, there's been a lot of talk about not only when is he coming back, but some of the dream matches that he could have when he returned to professional wrestling. And certainly this match was high up on the card of matches that fans wanted to see Neville in. Of course, now Pac, as he is known, won the championship in Dragon Gate, which is the Japanese promotion that he is currently involved in. Open the Dream Gate Championship is what it was called. He defeated Yoshi Ono to become his fourth reign, or ended Yoshi Ono's fourth reign as champion. But nonetheless, Pac goes into this match against Neville as the champion. It'll be after WrestleKingdom, so certainly something to look forward to here. But before we get to that match, we do have to go through the WrestleKingdom card for WrestleKingdom 13. Like we had said earlier, a lot of matches have already been confirmed for WrestleKingdom. The main event of this pay-per-view will be Kenny Omega, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, defending his title that he won from Kazuchika Okada at Dominion in June of this year, defending it against Hiroshi Tanahashi, who won the G1 Climax that I covered this summer here on Marking Out. Tanahashi is one of the all-time greats when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think there's definitely a big disconnect from the Japanese fans in that Eastern culture to the Western world of professional wrestling. And I think Tanahashi's legacy kind of gets lost in that disconnect there because he has done, he's been with New Japan for so long and held so many titles that he really is one of the all-time greats there, going up against arguably the greatest professional wrestler in the world today. So it is, I feel like, one of those matches that is a passing of the torch matches, much like a Rock Hogan or a Cena Rock type match. So very excited for that one. What are your thoughts on Kenny Omega and Tanahashi on this?
I'm not as big into New Japan as I am WWE.
Yeah.
But when I do watch New Japan, I like to do my homework.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I have seen from Tanahashi, I've read articles that have compared him to kind of John Cena.
Yes.
Like he's the good guy of New Japan, never cheats, always smiles and says eat your vitamins.
Yep.
But I'm very excited for this one too, just because, as you said, it's kind of a passing of a torch match. And with that being said, I expect Kenny Omega to retain.
I agree.
This is definitely a generational kind of match where many fans, I'm sure, on that side of the world grew up watching Tanahashi, and the newer age of fans have grown up loving Kenny Omega. So seeing Omega and Tanahashi go at it here for WrestleKingdom 13, it's going to be intriguing. Hopefully it's a clean finish. I don't want any elite interference or anything like that. I would like to just see a clean finish. Maybe we get a Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels moment where Tanahashi's just like Old Yeller in a sense. It's just like, you know what, you're the better man. Like, I'm going to lose to you. I know I'm going to lose to you, but like, just respect me. And maybe we get like a little post-match handshake or something. But this is one of those matches, too, that you circle your calendar for. This is definitely a generational kind of match and one that is going to be talked about for probably many years to come.
Yeah, I agree. And then we talked about that kind of disconnect between Eastern and Western professional wrestling. One of the matches on this card that really transcends both of those is the match for the IWGP Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. It is the champion, Chris Jericho, defending against Tetsuya Naito. Now, these two had a match earlier this year in June at Dominion where Chris Jericho won the IWGP Intercontinental Championship from Naito. Had a couple matches in between there, most notably against Evil and Sonata. He attacked Kenny Omega at All In. But nonetheless, we get the rematch about 6 months later here at Wrestle Kingdom. Do you expect Chris Jericho to continue his run with New Japan Pro Wrestling after this?
Yes.
Okay.
Just based on everything that's happening with All Elite Wrestling.
Yeah.
And based on the amount of draw Chris Jericho is getting in New Japan, the amount of news he is bringing, the amount of fun he is having, too.
Yeah.
This man is saying so many things over New Japan. I'm sure Vince McMahon would have a heart attack if he heard some of the things that Chris Jericho is saying in his press conferences. But I expect Jericho to retain over Naito just because Chris Jericho is on a whole nother level right now. I want him to win dirty. Very different from the Omega-Tanahashi match. I want Jericho to cheat his way because that's the character that Chris Jericho has right now, and I am just eating it up because it's something different from Chris Jericho. And once again, Chris Jericho being the mastermind that he is, this Christmas season is selling shirts of all of the different characters he has had, and it's 15 different characters of Chris Jericho. And he keeps reinventing himself. And we praise Jericho all the time on the show, but he still doesn't get enough credit from the rest of the wrestling world. But I think Jericho retains here, and I see his reign in New Japan ending a little bit after this. Maybe the next big show he'll drop it, and he'll be back for maybe the summer for WWE. But I think him carrying this belt into WrestleKingdom shows that he's still committed to them for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of matches on this card that I look at and I go, I could probably figure out what's going to happen here, but I really don't know what's going to happen between Jericho and Naito just because I don't know what Jericho's future is going to be. He very well could retain here and continue with New Japan, gives him more flexibility to work for other promotions if he wants to. Of course, All Elite Wrestling has potential to start up. He could work for... I don't think he would ever... Well, he appeared at All In, which was technically a Ring of Honor show, so it's very possible, but that's a huge step down, in my opinion, for Jericho.
Also had talks about Impact.
He is good friends with Don Callis, who does run Impact Wrestling. He just posted a photo the other day with him with a bunch of executives from Impact Wrestling, but Jericho's also been known to do that kind of stuff just to get people talking, to
Absolutely.
even if he has no intention, he's just hanging out with them. They probably the first 5 minutes of them hanging out, they're like, "So you coming to Impact?" And he's like, "No, but we're gonna take a picture anyway."
Amen. We're gonna get them rumors swirling, baby.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that matchup. We have a couple other matches on here on the undercard. Kazuchika Okada versus Jay White. Okada, obviously one of the longest reigning IWGP heavyweight champions in the history of the company, had one of the greatest series of matches of all time with Kenny Omega and their 4 all-time classics. Now he goes up against Jay White, who is now the new de facto leader of the Bullet Club, replacing Cody Rhodes. He is kind of the new big heel in IWGP. One of those guys that I really look like could potentially be in the WWE within the next 2 years. I would say Switchblade Jay White is probably your leading contender if anyone's going to go and make the jump. I think he's probably the next big guy once his run with Bullet Club is over. But excited for that one. Tomohiro Ishii will defend the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship against the technical wizard Zack Sabre Jr. I love Zack Sabre Jr.'s matches. He just makes everything look so absolutely effortless. He is the technical wizard for a reason. If you haven't seen a Zack Sabre Jr. match, look him up. He is... It's a match, but it's a professional wrestling match unlike anything you'll ever gonna see. It's not a lot of high flying stuff. It's not a lot of. It looks the most like an MMA fight than any other professional wrestling you get with Zack Sabre Jr.
It's very traditional.
Yes.
The very few matches I have seen with Zack Sabre Jr. in it, they're very traditional in the fact they're starting with chain wrestling. And they're slowly building.
Yes.
And that's something that we don't have in professional wrestling today, which makes him so captivating.
Right.
And he is not some huge, muscly guy either. He's a very slender man.
He's a very skinny man. I think he's still 6'2", 6'3", but he probably doesn't weigh 200 pounds. He's probably 185.
Well, he was in the 205 Cruiserweight Classic the first time they had it.
Yes.
But he is he's a very thin guy. But, man, he can move and... Apart from, say, Daniel Bryan, he might be one of the best technical wrestlers in wrestling today because it's kind of a lost art at this point.
That's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up because I always think back to this interview Daniel Bryan did, and I think he might have actually done it with Chris Jericho and Talk is Jericho. But he was talking about this transition from, the big stars or the Braun Strowman's big shows, Hulk Hogan's of the world, to these smaller guys like like Sabre Jr., Daniel Bryan, Finn Balor, etc. But one thing that Daniel Bryan said during that podcast that really stuck out to me was that for as good as, a Zack Sabre Jr. is a professional wrestler, there still has to be an aspect of believability. And so he was kind of saying where, and he's putting himself in that category too because they're very similar. But basically he was saying for as good as Sabre Jr. is, are you ever going to believe that Sabre Jr. has a shot against someone like Brock Lesnar? But he's good, for as good as Sabre Jr. is, at the same time, there might be a cap on just how far he can go, just because it'd be asinine to think that Sabre Jr. is a shot.
I mean, but sitting here just playing devil's advocate for a second, truthfully, I don't think if I saw that matchup, I'd be like, all right, Brock's going to win. But devil's advocate.
I'd still watch it, but
if they book it the right way, I mean, look at Daniel Bryan versus Brock.
Yeah.
I said it was going to be under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And here we are, Daniel Bryan playing chicken, running around. At one point, has Brock Lesnar in the yes lock, and Brock looks like he's going to tap out.
Yeah.
So, if they book it the right way, you might be able to. And once again, too, Zack Sabre Jr., a little bit of a taller man compared to Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Based on how they book it, based on how they produce the match, who's producing the match, what both participants are willing to do, I could possibly believe it.
Possibly.
Possibly, but that's definitely a match, too, that I'm excited to watch. And then, finally, on the WrestleKingdom card, we have Kota Ibushi, the champion, with the never open-weight championship against aforementioned Will Ospreay. What do you think about this one, Jason?
Oh, man, I'm excited for this one. I think we saw, for just strictly WWE fans, you saw a little bit of Kota Ibushi in that inaugural Cruiserweight Classic. He made it to the semifinals. Along did Zack Sabre Jr. as well. Kota actually even had a couple matches on NXT television in the subsequent weeks, but is firmly one of those guys where I think if anyone's going to make a jump to that new All Elite Wrestling promotion, he's probably another one of those leading candidates. He's very close with the Elite and Cody Rhodes and Omega and the Young Bucks, so he probably makes the jump here. But nonetheless, again, another one of these two greatest high flyers of their era. This is going to be another one, much like the Will Ospreay-Pac match. This is going to be full of high spots and just a dream match for people to have. So I'm excited for this one. What about you?
I'm very, very excited. Again, I mean, my first taste of Kota was in the Cruiserweight Classic, and just seeing
that match with Cedric Alexander where everyone chanted, "We want Cedric" after, and Triple H came out and signed him
immediately. My first taste of Kota was in the Cruiserweight Classic, and seeing, unlike Will Ospreay and unlike Zack Sabre Jr., Kota has the look.
Yeah, he does.
He looks like just a big, muscly dude.
Yeah.
And the other thing that is very, very nice about Kota is he is very, very old.
Yeah.
Because, and I say that being a nice thing, him being 36 years old, is if he does go anywhere else, we're going to get a lot of dream matches really, really quick.
Right.
Because I'm sure he doesn't want to be doing this for the rest of his life.
No.
Though he's in the shape to do it, obviously your body's going to wear down over time. So if he stays in New Japan, we're going to get a couple more classics like this Will Ospreay match.
Yeah.
If he were to go to All Elite, they're obviously going to have to bring some people in to go toe-to-toe with him and get people to tune in, so they're going to be big names. If he were somehow to come to WWE, we get Seth Rollins maybe.
Yep.
We get another Cedric Alexander match. Maybe he comes and takes over the Cruiserweight division for a little bit. But
I think signing Ibushi, and I think the reason he didn't, win the finals in the Cruiserweight Classic is because he refused to sign a deal with the WWE.
True.
So this is obviously all speculatory, but
absolutely,
if this were all to change, there are, like you said, there's a lot of dream matches.
So many.
He could be the face of that Cruiserweight division, which, I mean, I think Buddy Murphy's doing an okay job. I don't think he's doing bad, but one other dream match before we move on to TLC predictions for Kota Ibushi, I would love to see, and I think they've wrestled their fair share on the independent scene, but I would love to see an incarnation of Kota Ibushi versus Ricochet on NXT one more time. If there's any one match I could see Kota Ibushi wrestle in the WWE, I think it'd be against Ricochet, just because the amount of aerial maneuvers and just the aesthetics of that match would just be off the charts.
And also, very similarly, Will Ospreay, I'm sure, would like one more match with Ricochet.
Yeah, because
I believe when Ricochet signed, Will Ospreay sent out a very cryptic tweet saying, "Man, you're really going to leave me like this? Our all-time series is tied. What are we going to do?"
Yeah.
And everybody was like, go to WWE, Will, go to WWE. But I don't think I could ever see Will in WWE.
You don't think so?
No, I think Kota would be more likely, but based on what has happened with Asuka and Shinsuke, I don't know if that would happen, based on his other countrymen.
I think Will would thrive in the WWE.
I think he would too, and he's definitely somebody probably on the radar. He's somebody that
100%.
Triple H is looking at.
Oh, they've definitely made attempts, I'm sure.
But once again, the fact of Will being able to do what he wants to do and float around and have his dream matches, not necessarily the dream matches that he's getting told to wrestle, but the ones he wants to wrestle still is a huge factor.
I think another thing that Will Ospreay might be deterred by the WWE is I think Will has this goal of wanting to be treated like a top guy, like a heavyweight guy. Mm-hmm. And I think if he goes to the WWE, he's going to be pigeonholed into that like cruiserweight division. But the one thing that he does have going for him is the success of Ricochet. Because before Ricochet went to the WWE, everyone was saying the same things that we're saying about Will, that we were saying about Ricochet. He's going to be treated, he's going to be pigeonholed, he's not going to survive, no one's going to get him, that's not real wrestling, it's just flippy stuff. But Ricochet's doing pretty well for himself. He's probably... He's definitely one of the biggest stars in NXT right now, which for my money is the best professional wrestling promotion. If you take NXT and the WWE main roster separately, I think NXT is still hands down better. So I would to wrap it up, I would say I would love to see Will Ospreay in the WWE. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, I think it'll be a good business move for him. I would love to see it.
Completely agree.
So, all right, that's going to go into another break here. When we come back, we're going to give our official predictions for the TLC card this Sunday. You are listening to Marking Out on Com Radio. We are Penn State's only professional wrestling exclusive podcast, and we will be right back.
Now, back to Com Radio's only WWE talk show, Marking Out with Jason Marcus and Matt Freiler.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the final episode of Marking Out. I'm your host, Jason Marcus. Alongside me, Ryan Simpson, and we are talking about tables, ladders, and chairs. A little bit of TLC in your lives. It is TLC this Sunday. Both Raw and SmackDown will come at you with some big matchups and some not-so-big matchups. But nonetheless, we're going to go through the entire card, and we are going to give our official predictions for TLC this Sunday. And we're going to start it off with the Raw Women's Championship match between the champion Ronda Rousey defending against the facebreaker, Nia Jax. Ryan hates that, and so do I, but I had to say it. For the Raw Women's Championship, of course, Ronda Rousey won the Raw Women's Championship, I believe, from Nia Jax. Or was it Alexa Bliss?
It was Alexa Bliss.
Okay. Well, they had a match at Money in the Bank.
They had a match at Money in the Bank, and Alexa cashed in to make it a triple threat.
Right. Okay. So, nonetheless, Rousey now the champion. They get the rematch against Nia Jax. Nia Jax won a Battle Royal at the Evolution All-Women's pay-per-view to get this #1 contendership. But since then, has been making headlines for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. She notably punched Becky Lynch for real in the face and imploded her nose and effectively ruined the Survivor Series main event. But on the bright side, it's probably catapulted to Becky Lynch to the hottest thing in wrestling. But nonetheless, Ryan, what's your reaction to this match?
I couldn't care less at this point.
I agree with you. I hate to, but I really agree.
Like, I love watching Ronda in the ring because she always impresses. She always exceeds my expectations when she gets in the ring. Especially the match with Nia at Money in the Bank. Most people were saying, oh, man, there's no way she's going to be able to have a match with Nia. Nia's so big, or Ronda's not going to be able to know how to work with her. But they put on a pretty good match. They kept me entertained until Alexa came in. And then Alexa did her shtick and hit him with a briefcase and cashed in. But I couldn't care less about this match. And for some stupid reason, I feel like they're going to have Nia Jax win.
You think they're going to have Nia win?
I think they're going to have Nia hold it until next month, and then Ronda's going to win it right back. But Nia is such a heat magnet right now. I think they're going to roll with it.
I mean,
that might be my hot take.
So,
I really hope I'm wrong.
So your official prediction is Nia Jax wins the title in this match here this weekend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I part of me really does agree with you. I think it makes it depends on how they do it. I hate Nia Jax, which I guess if you're a heel, that's a good thing. And hate's a strong word, but I don't know. Rousey's the only thing in your Raw women's division right now that's working. I don't know why you would ruin that, but and this is a little bit because of the dirt sheet here, but in 2019, SmackDown is moving to Fox. And they are looking for a much more UFC-type feel, so there's rumors that Ronda is going to move to SmackDown.
Yep.
So if that is the case, you got to take the title off her at some point. This could be the place to do it, but I just don't think Nia Jax is the person to hold that division. I think if you were to replace Nia Jax in this match with, quite frankly, anybody else from the women's roster on Raw, I think it's a little bit more enticing.
I just had another idea sitting here. I could see Ronda winning. And then Alexa coming out and going, oh, no, I saw something fishy. I'm restarting this. And then Nia just, gets a roll-up or something.
Very well could see that, too. Alexa Bliss is obviously probably going to play into this match as she is
has to.
Yeah, that's probably, honestly, the most likely situation. I'm glad you thought of that. That's really good. So, officially, I'm going to take Ronda Rousey, but I very well could see Nia Jax walking out of TLC with the championship. Up next, we have Finn Balor versus Drew McIntyre. Finn Balor, man, I don't even know what the build to this match is. Raw's been so bad in the past couple of weeks. I guess Drew is big and Finn is small, very similar to Finn and Baron Corbin's feud from a couple months ago.
And Finn and Bobby.
Yeah, and Finn and Bobby. Gee, I wonder what management thinks of Finn Balor. Like,
That's just so annoying to me.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's getting a little bit of a push. I don't know. I really have no idea what to think of this match. If I had to put a winner on it, I'm going Drew McIntyre just because they're clearly pushing him, and nothing has shown me that they have any future plans for Finn. So, you have anything different?
No, I'm agreeing. As much as I'm a Finn Balor fanboy, it has to be Drew here, just based on what they've done to Finn at this point.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. But
Up next, we have Natalya versus Ruby Riott in a tables match. Because it's a TLC pay-per-view, you have to have a tables match in there somewhere, and I guess this is where they decided to put it. So, the build to this one is capitalizing off the real-life death of Natalya's father, which is always in good taste. It's just been... It's rough. I don't know. I don't really care or know who wins. If I have to give an official prediction, I'll go Ruby Riott, just because I feel like putting someone through a table is a heel thing to do, so she's the heel.
Yeah,
I
agree. It's such in bad taste when they exploit somebody's dead relative. Like, most notably recently, too, is when Paige made a comment about Charlotte Flair's younger brother.
Like,
and that it's pardon the wrestling pun, but that is such a low blow to do to somebody. Like, you got to separate work and family.
Especially because after that,
lives.
I read that Charlotte had no idea that
she Charlotte had no idea that was coming, which is just horrible. And I'm sure Natalya...
It'd be one thing if she said it before, was like, hey, I want to say this because I know it'll get a lot of heat. Do I have your approval?
Absolutely.
But to just lay it on her like that, like, that's, I don't know.
Bad taste. And I don't know how Natalya feels about this. I don't think she would be one to openly exploit her father's passing.
No, this was definitely something creative. This was not Natalya's idea.
Absolutely
This was something creative, went to her and said, hey, we think this would be really good. And she's Natalya, I get the vibe, is very corporate and is just going to do whatever the company wants.
And that's what she's been taught. That's her family, as we were alluding to earlier, as wrestling families. But once again, official prediction, I guess I'm going to go Ruby Riott too, because heels love tables.
Yeah, so up next we have Elias versus Bobby Lashley. Again, sorry folks, I don't really know why these two are fighting. They just announced it, to be honest. But nonetheless, Elias is the babyface here. Bobby Lashley's the heel. Who knows? Who cares? But Ryan, who wins?
Yeah, it's gonna be Elias here.
You think so?
Big Elias guy over here. I want to walk with Elias. I think Elias was starting to skyrocket a little bit, and then had a little bit of a trip up, with the programs that he was given. But there's nothing else going on with Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
So I think this is kind of the last stop for either guy. This is going to be a fork in the road for both competitors. If Elias goes over, it shows, hey, we brought this guy back, and we like you better than him.
Yeah.
If Lashley wins, it's, oh, hey, we're going to start pushing you like we should have pushed you, and Elias, you're a gimmick, and you will always be a gimmick to us.
Oh, wow.
And you're not a wrestler. So, as much as this match seems very, very boring, and we really don't know why this is going on, I think it'll give a great indication of what creative thinks of both men in the ring.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. I have to believe that I don't know. I think I'll take Bobby Lashley. Just because I think Elias is over already, and I think if you have Bobby Lashley cheat or have Leo Rush help Bobby Lashley win to defeat Elias, it helps Lashley get the win, and I don't think it hurts. I mean, Elias loses anyway. I don't think it hurts Elias's momentum. However, I think if you have Elias beat Bobby Lashley here, then what sense of credibility does Bobby Lashley have left? You know what I mean?
We could get a post-match beatdown or something.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Either way. Officially, I'm going Bobby Lashley, but...
Walk with Elias, baby.
Yeah, I don't know. Could go either way. Up next, we have the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match between the champions, The Bar, versus the Usos versus the New Day Triple Threat Tag Team rules. Obviously, the three best tag teams in SmackDown, probably the entire division on the main roster. Again, no real reason why these three are fighting, except that they just need something to do, and here they are. So I think it'll be a good match, but as far as a story behind it, no real story. But Ryan, what do you got?
I think this storyline between the three teams will carry into WrestleMania, and I could see this match happening again at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But I have the Bar losing the straps here to the Usos.
Okay.
I mean, the New Day had them recently. Bar has them now. Have the Usos win them.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Sure,
What
why
else are you
not?
gonna do with them?
Let's toss the titles around. Maybe have a TLC match at Mania like we saw at 33 when the New Day hosted WrestleMania. But I think that's the most interesting way to get people interested or invested in the story is just keep passing the belts around because then you really don't know who the top team is. And then you have the match at WrestleMania, solidifies who's the top team. Maybe the one team gets a break. The other team, like kind of when New Day and Usos had their storyline, have it come together in the ring, say, hey, we respect you as competitors, and we move from there.
Yep. And again, hard to call on this one. I think for the sake of just being different, I'll probably take the New Day on this one. New Day, move that merch, baby. And that's all that really matters in this day and age. So.
Pretty much.
And, why not? I think there was a rumor out there that they're just trying to make the New Day, hold the record for most tag titles. So just put them on it again and have them lose them in a month. It's what you've been doing for the past year anyway. So up next, we have Braun Strowman versus Baron Corbin in a TLC match. Now, this one is probably the most controversial match on the card, simply because we don't know if Strowman can wrestle, let alone in a match where he's going to get hit a bunch of times with foreign objects. But the caveat of this match is that if Strowman wins, he'll get a Universal title shot against Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble. And if he doesn't, then Corbin will be the GM on a full-time... Isn't he anyway?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the... Anyway, nonetheless, I guess this is a two-parter, Ryan. Does Braun Strowman compete in this match? And if he does he win?
I think he competes. And I think he wins.
Okay. So you think you're going to get Braun at Royal Rumble?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we get Braun at Royal Rumble. Braun's arm still looks all tore up from the surgery he had. But I think he'll come out with it all taped up or in some big gimmicky mummy-looking cast. And he'll start beating Baron with it or something like that because Vince McMahon likes big sweaty men. And Braun Strowman is one of those big sweaty men. But I think Braun's going to win here.
Yeah, and... I tend to agree with you. I think if Braun does compete, he is going to win the match just because then that does set up your championship but let's talk about this. If Strowman wins this match and goes to face Brock at Royal Rumble, is he just going to lose for the third time in a row?
Yes, indeed.
What are you doing in there?
I think Brock Lesnar is slowly turning into Ryback where he just sits backstage, meets with Vince, and just yells, "Feed me more."
Yeah, This is just a lose-lose for Braun.
It's a lose-lose for everybody in the situation. It's a lose-lose for Brock because it's a match he's already had.
Yeah.
And him and Braun have obviously had their disagreements in the ring in the past.
Yeah.
It's a lose for Braun because he's going to lose. The physical match, he will lose. And it's a lose for the crowd at the Royal Rumble. We're having the Royal Rumble at Chase Field in Arizona. Big venue, ballpark. The Royal Rumble is going to be in a baseball stadium for the first time probably since, WrestleMania at Safeco?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So it's a big event, and we're going to get the same match of Braun versus Brock,
and the worst part about that matchup is on paper it seems like it should be good, but the last two times these guys have fought, it hasn't even been competitive.
No.
Both times, Braun has lost. Well, that's not true. The first time Braun got pinned after one F5.
Silly.
And then even worse, he kicked out of 5 and then lost anyway and didn't get a single piece of offense. And it's horrible. They kind of booked themselves into a corner with this one here. I don't know what other direction they're going to go with it. If Corbin wins or if Braun just doesn't show up, then what's your championship match at Royal Rumble? If there is one.
If there is one, if Brock wants to show up and get paid or not.
Yeah, so I don't know. Official prediction, I think Braun competes and wins. Official prediction, it sucks either way. So
amen to that.
So moving on, before we get to the big matches here, there is also the finals of the Mixed Match Challenge will be happening on this pay-per-view. In case you haven't been keeping up with this barn burner of a series, the finals of this match will be Carmella and R-Truth going up against the team of Naomi and Jey Uso. Don't worry, guys. There is something on the line here. The winner of this match, the male participant, both male and female participants, will be the 30th entrant in their respective Royal Rumble matches. So that means something. Ryan, I don't know, man. Who wins? Doesn't matter.
I want to hate the Mixed Match Challenge so much, but I cannot wait for R-Truth's music to play at number 30 this
I
year.
know.
Because we will be watching the Royal Rumble, and I'm just going to be losing my mind laughing because I see R-Truth tying the record for the shortest time in the Royal Rumble this year.
Yeah.
I see him rolling into that ring at 30 and somebody ripping him a new one and throwing him right out.
You know what I'd love to see from this? My official prediction is Carmella and R-Truth are going to win this one because it's the only entertaining option.
Very true.
Who cares at number 30 if it's Jey Uso? Like, all right, dope.
He comes back out in the face paint and starts doing the haka again.
This just has to be R-Truth and Carmella here, right? And I think that is really funny, that idea of R-Truth coming out at number 30. Although I'll say I don't think he breaks the record for shortest time in there. I think it's one of those situations of like Santino Marella from 2012, where everyone thinks R-Truth just won the Royal Rumble, and then R-Truth eliminates himself because he thinks it's over, and then the last guy. Although that would be a really anticlimactic ending, but I think that'd be hilarious if R-Truth has the Rumble won and then eliminates himself because he doesn't know it's over.
That would be really, really funny.
But that's the only entertaining way to play this.
Yeah.
So, official prediction is R-Truth and Carmella. It's got to be the only answer.
Retweet on that.
All right, last couple of matches here. We have the Intercontinental Championship match between the champion Seth Rollins up against Dean Ambrose. This pay-per-view, or this program, should be so much better than what it was. Right, we were on this podcast a couple weeks ago talking about how much potential this program had, how much real-life emotion and story and introspectiveness that they could tell. And they haven't done any of it. They haven't done anything. There's nothing going on. Dean hasn't said a word since he turned heel.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we've got from Dean Ambrose is him burning his Shield vest, and that was pretty lackluster.
Like what?
It's sad, and that's something that I know we do a lot of moaning and complaining on this show about booking, but I think the Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose story at the end of 2018 is ground zero for creative not doing their jobs.
Yeah.
If there's a storyline to point to where there was all the potential in the world to do something and it went astray, this is it. I was so excited to see this. We were all excited to see this going on. Everybody thought, man, like, heel Dean Ambrose is going to be crazy. He's going to be like mid-2000s Randy Orton. He's just going to go off the deep end. And he just, like, burns his Shield jacket and comes out looking like Bane on Raw.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so poorly done. But with all of that being said, this is going to continue, and Dean's going to win the belt.
So your official prediction is Dean wins the Intercontinental Championship here?
Dean is going to cheat with a low blow or something without the ref looking, and he's going to take the belt. And then that either opens up Seth to continue along with Dean for the IC belt, or that allows Seth to go after the Universal belt.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I think Dean's going to win the Intercontinental Championship here. I'm actually really disappointed that this program is for the Intercontinental Championship. Not to say that the Intercontinental Championship should be devalued by any means, but this is the Universal Championship program in my mind. Like this should be much farther up the card, especially ahead of Corbin Strowman. Like who cares? Yeah, it's a shame. I wish they could have found a way to put the title, the Universal Championship, on either one of these guys instead of Brock. But, again, they've backed themselves in their corner. Official prediction, I think Dean Ambrose wins the Intercontinental Championship here, and I think Seth Rollins makes his way towards the Universal.
And I have one more point about this match. It is a TLC pay-per-view. It is a gimmick pay-per-view. With all of this going on, why is this not a TLC match?
Right. Why is this not the TLC? Why is this not the TLC match? Why did we have to put that for Strowman Corbin? Because that's got so much more on the line.
And looking back, too, when Rollins and Dean had their Hell in a Cell match, fantastic.
Yeah.
Was so good because you add that one little extra element of a steel cage, and they have a playground now. Why do we not have this in a TLC match? We could have Dean just hitting Seth over and over again with a chair. We could have a frog splash from Rollins onto a table or something like that. But no, we don't get that because that would be too nice for the fans, and we have to suffer.
It would make too much sense, right?
Absolutely. And finally, for the TLC card, we have champion and heel Daniel Bryan going against AJ Styles for the WWE Championship.
I mean, I guess Daniel Bryan's probably going to win because they just put the title on him, and why would you take it off him? Is there any other logic to this?
just moving forward, maybe somebody else gets involved. I don't know.
I think I'm just most looking forward to see where both of these guys go from here. I mean, listen, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles is going to be a great match.
Absolutely.
Probably should main event your card. Probably won't, though. I think there's a good chance that the women's championship match, and I think there's a good chance that Strowman Corbin, unfortunately, close the show. Or so I don't know where Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles go from here. Well, I will say officially, I think Daniel Bryan's going to retain. I don't know. SmackDown's hurting for single stars.
Completely agree.
Where does AJ go from here? Randy Orton?
I mean, Samoa Joe and Hardy are starting their program, and they're not even on this card at all.
Yeah.
But I think officially, too, I have Daniel Bryan. And like you said, going forward's really what's the story out of this match.
This is very much a transitional pay-per-view.
Yeah, which sucks because some of these matches could really, really put on a good show.
Any other day of the week, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles is a must-see event, and now it's kind of like, I know what's going to happen.
And then finally, as I misread the match card, we have one final match. It is the SmackDown's Women's Championship of Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair versus Asuka. And I think this could be the show's showstopper.
I definitely think this is going to be not only the best match on the card, but I think it's a crime if this doesn't close the show. I mean, it's the most over angle, right? I mean, Asuka's kind of just thrown in there, but
adds a different element to it.
Yeah, it's an element of unpredictability.
Yes.
Which is good because all these have been, this will also be a tables, ladders, and chairs match. So I definitely think this has got to close the show, right?
It has to close the show then.
I think this could be real good. If there's any reason to tune into this pay-per-view at all, it's just one match. Yeah.
This match.
I mean, Matt was on here a couple weeks ago saying that Becky Lynch's and Charlotte's last man standing match is one of the greatest women's championships. I mean, now you add like a high spot and ladders and Asuka and everything that she can do and bring to the table. This is going to be good.
This is going to be very, very good. And as much as I'm an old school person and I hate to see the WWE Championship not go on last, based on the angle, based on what has happened with Nia and Becky, based on Becky being possibly the hottest thing in professional wrestling in the entire universe, I think this match has to go on last.
Absolutely.
Has to. They are doing a disservice to Becky Lynch. Credit Charlotte Flair, credit Asuka, both great competitors. They are doing a disservice to Becky Lynch and what she has done with the Women's Championship if this match does not go on last.
I 100% agree. I think this one is a tough one to call, but I think Becky Lynch has to retain the title here, right? The only question in my mind is after that, what do you do with Charlotte Flair and Asuka after this? Because there's the rumor that Charlotte Flair is still going to be in a main event at WrestleMania, but if she loses here, I don't know. Does she win the Royal Rumble?
I mean, that's a good possibility. I mean, I'm gonna predict Becky winning here as well because then, based on my other prediction, Ronda's now opened up losing to Nia.
Yeah.
The switch over to Fox. You can have Becky versus Ronda set up going into the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And then you could say, oh, yeah, it's going to be Becky Ronda. And then maybe like in a pre-Women's Rumble match interview, you have Charlotte say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of hearing about Becky and Ronda. I'm the queen.
Right.
And then you have her win. And then it's like, oh, now it's a triple threat. Let's go.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. And poor Asuka because, I mean,
I think she's gone, too, as we've mentioned many times.
You think as soon as her contract's up, she's done?
I think her contract's up, she's gone, too.
Yeah, which is so unfortunate because it wasn't even a year ago that she was the hottest thing in wrestling.
Absolutely.
And it's how quickly they've gone. So, all right, well, that is going to do it for our final episode of Marking Out. I want to say thank you guys to everyone who's listened to us over this past year, anyone who's followed us on YouTube or SoundCloud or Facebook or any of these opportunities. I want to thank Matt Freiler for being my co-host for the first couple months here. Again, really wish he was here right now. Ryan, I want to thank you for jumping in about halfway through here and contributing. I know this is something that we've all really enjoyed doing together. Obviously, you guys bring incredible aspect to the podcast and your knowledge and just really have made, above all else, just made this really fun to do, and I hope you guys had a fun time listening as well. I've done a lot of stuff here in college, but this is 100% the thing I'm going to miss the most when I look back on is, man, if I could just get in the booth one more time and talk about professional wrestling for the next 2 hours with my best friends, I'd do anything to do that again. So I want to thank you guys for coming out here every week. I know it hasn't been easy. But thank you guys for making the time. Thank you for marking out with us over this past year. It's been a heck of a ride, man. So
It has. I definitely want to thank you, Jason, for getting me involved in this. You and Matt both said that this would be something that I would enjoy, and here I am now doing the show every week and doing some other stuff for Com Radio. So definitely a thank you to you two. Jason, obviously wish you all the best in your future endeavors. We're definitely going to miss you out here at Com Radio. But like you said, thanks for marking out with us for an entire year, and let's ride off into the sunset.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much. And although this is may not be over, this is just a goodbye for now. You never know when we will be back. So thank you guys so much. Keep marking out. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.